still. I'm half interested in prairie, half interested in prairie ag on the way to Postville. You probably all been by there. I started farming not because I wanted to probably, but my father passed away when I was 18 years old. My brother was 20. We milked a big herd of cows. So we started farming in 1958, milking cows. We milked them until 1962. We were still selling canned milk at the time. The local creamery quit taking canned milk. We either had to spend a lot of money redoing the dairy barn and the milk house and everything. So we sold the milk cows and bought the neighbor's farm and started feeding beef cattle and raised lots of hogs. And in 1972, we built a farrowing cooperative with 10 members. And we just discontinued that last year because the equipment was all wore out. Our manager took a different job. We were still in crates. Everybody wants pens nowadays. So we discontinued that. My brother and I split up our farms, so we didn't have cousins farming together. My boys took a couple farms, his boy took 2 or 3, and so we split. So now everybody's on their own, and it's worked out fine. So the boys are doing the farming, and I'm just trying to do whatever I want to do.
Excellent. Okay, Grandma Steinway.
What can I say? We're here. We came here in '68. The Lord takes care of the land. What else do I say?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm old man Richard Jensen, and I farm down towards Elgin, where we have many more hills than we've looked at today. I was born with an affection for the land and a reverence for the land, and it's never ended. I'm just amazed at the group that's here today and their willingness to try to learn how to care for their land, be better stewards of it. Probably one of the things I remember the most that makes a wide difference for the young fellows farming today, and when I started, I was renting land from the neighbor. This was probably in 1960, I'm going to guess, maybe 59 or 60. I was paying $23 an acre for some really good land. Had it in corn. And the owner came to me, he was pretty well satisfied with what I was doing, and he said, I'd like to sell you my farm. He said, I'm asking $300 for it. And I run home to talk to Dad, and he says, you damn fool. He said, you only give $150 an acre for it. So it just shows the big difference today, what we're dealing with. So I continue to farm and enjoy every minute of it. I think I'm manager of it. My boy pretty much does it. I think I'm manager, but he does as he pleases anyway. So.
Okay, so it's my turn to ask some questions, and I'd like each of you to answer. So we're here because this is kind of an innovation day to share with the cover crops and the companion crops and the new ways of soil health. So in thinking about soil health, I mean, it wasn't a term when you started probably, but what do you think was the best practice at the time that you knew to conserve soil?
Well, obviously contour farming would have been, and then there was a lot of rotation in my career started in the early 70s, but we still had the dairy farms, so they rotated crops and had on the contour strips. So back then, that probably was the best one.
And what rotation would you have?
Well, typically a year of corn, and an oat crop, and then probably 2 years of hay or meadow, with how the fields were situated.
Okay.
I would say rotation back then was a big thing. You had to have your alfalfa for your cows. And then we went for 2 years corn, then back to oats. So, but I am neglected to say that we've been no-tilling for over 15 years. We started out with a Rawson planter. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, a Rawson planter. Back there, a handle it up.
It was a 3-cold.
It had 3 colders, had ripple colders. There was 3 colders, 1 leading and 2 on the side. And a guy up in Michigan devised this way of planting corn. So we were one of the first ones in that neck of the woods to do it, and we did that for about 5 years, and it was working real fine. But one year we had to get quite a windstorm, and we found out that our corn all tipped over and nobody else's did. Well, you grabbed a hold of the plant, and the roots were going this way instead of down this way. So that was the end of the Rawson. So after that, we went to the single cylinder holder with trash whippers, and that's the program today with our no-till.
Okay. Grandpa's time logging.
Well, we used to milk cows. We had corn, oats, and hay, hogs, all manure. And then after the cattle went, then he went to no-till, because we had no manure to work in. So that's what it's been ever since, you know.
Okay.
Probably is one of the biggest changes I've seen. Of course, the operations are much larger, but each and every one of us has manure, and we who were conscientious of the benefits of manure would always apply that to the areas that we realized needed it. So we produced a lot of our own fertilizer. And then the other thing, when I watched atrazine come on board, and we sampled a little bit of it, but remember when we all banded, and we had quack in between the rows, and we were contouring too, but without realizing it, we kind of had our own natural cover crop. Quack was the best friend we ever had for soil conservation. We ditched it and everything, but our rows would always be green in the middle, wouldn't they?
So what's the, explain that, I guess.
He was the early interseeder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weeds.
Yeah.
The companion crop was weeds,
Yeah.
and
The
that's,
water grass.
and the watergrass.
But he's probably not familiar with quackgrass, but the quackgrass grew from roots, kind of a rhizome, so it would just keep spreading. It didn't have to go to seed. The roots were always alive, kind of like today's Canadian thistles.
And then when you actually tilled it, then you made a whole bunch of little more new plants, and they all just went crazy.
Yeah, you just spread it around.
Yeah.
But isn't it, in a sense, we're trying to replicate that, the benefits of it.
Probably so.
That's a great analogy. I mean, seriously.
So, the one thing that I've noticed, you drive around corn beans, you don't see many cows grazing out there, and you don't necessarily understand the livestock. But if I listen to every one of you here, you all had a livestock component,
And I still have a small.
and you still have
A
one.
small beaver on one of the farms, and people speak out like about this.
So what about that? You notice that a lot of people don't have them anymore. Do you still think that they have a valuable place, or?
Well, in our operation, they definitely do, because, all that goes back on the soil. And you asked the question yesterday, how many tons of manure you put per acre, and my son thought for a while, and he was thinking probably 12 to 15 tons of cattle manure per acre goes back. Of course, we take the corn stalks off the bedding, so we haul it all back. And we've got a couple of big night spreaders, a flail shred this manure, so you can go in and no-till after it's been spread with manure, without the manure bothering this thing.
Okay.
And we do the same with our cattle operation, we're real, that's what I'm looking for. We pick our days when we haul the manure, and then we don't have a flail, but we have top feeders, and do a good job of spreading. We're just on a simple roll cleaner, colder no-till system, and manure, as long as you're good management on spreading it, it's not a problem.
Okay.
We never had pasture here all year you were here. Always confinement, so we had lots of manure.
And you were using the manure.
Yeah, we had one of the first pits down here, I believe, in Robin. So, we never hauled manure in the winter time, we had pump in the barn, and then in December, we usually had a can too. So we made it, and otherwise, we only waited until spring and fall, you know.
I think, if you can imagine, and I think this would be a fair assumption, 25% of our tillable acres, maybe more, maybe 30, were either in hay or oats in my time. A significant amount of our acres were covered, you know, as opposed today to exposed erosion. Haying was a big issue for all of us. I probably had, I tried to maintain 100, 125 cows and calves and feed them out, so I might have had 150 acres of hay, you know.
And do you think, so now we've taken out, we're all on annual crops. Do you see, would you see any benefit to going back to a hay, a rotation with hay?
For me, speaking first, if I could go back to the same age and time, you might have the time back again if I was young again, yeah.
I think probably the financial thing nowadays would keep you from going hay.
But if you didn't have a financial constraint,
Oh, of course. The
Yeah,
big
we're always-
advantage of growing alfalfa.
Money was always a problem.
A couple of anecdotes about hay. I do rotate a small farm I rent just up the hill from our elevator there in St. Olaf. It's been just continuous corn forever, and I've been rotating the hay acres around because the landlady would not allow beans. But my other anecdote about hay, there was 5 of us boys growing up, and my dad's name was Donald, and neighbor would call, Donnie, you about done haying? Yeah, we'll finish today. Well, then I'll start cutting. So that was a financial incentive for us growing teenagers. We had a little money for the county fair. We'd go help hay. That was my anecdote about the hay.
yeah. So now I hear everybody talking about their sons being involved in their operation. So if you look at, what do you think is, out of everything that we've done now, what would you say, looking forward right now, to what, well, look at the present. Let's look at the present first. What is the biggest single, in your mind, advance that we've made in terms of agriculture in your lifetime today?
Everything went to confinement.
Was that a good thing?
Chickens, yeah. I over here, he started the chicken business, you know. And then the hogs followed.
So you think confinement was a big,
Yeah, he's
Was
the
a big
first one that had
innovation.
chicken houses around, you know.
okay?
And that's back in the fifties.
So you're saying specialization
Yeah.
in the livestock.
Yeah.
Now, without a doubt, probably an improvement for the consumer if they want to think so or not, but as far as quality of food, consistency, that type of thing.
You would agree with confinement?
Pardon?
You would agree that with the confinement being okay? Are there any other things that you would think of in the time that since you've been farming, what was the other, or you could say 2 or 3 big things that you thought really made a difference?
Well, they had no-till farming.
The advent of no-till farming, okay?
Along with it, the GMO crops, or the ability to be
seeds that we plant today are so much better
Seed
than
quality,
corn.
seed quality.
Seed quality and seed corn. The boys retest their germination when they get their seed corn in the spring. They don't go by what's printed on the bag. They'll send it away and get a seed cold germ test. And you'd be surprised the difference in the seed corn. If it don't meet 96% cold germ, they'll send that seed back to the seed corn company. And they've got the good stuff. So if you're out here planting 34,000 plants per acre, and you only got 90% germ, 10% of that corn that you're planting doesn't grow, so now you got a big skip. If you're gonna get maximum yield, you gotta have a plant every 7 inches. And it also has to come up within 2 or 3 days of each other, because if you got a kernel here that comes up 4 days after this one over here, it's actually a weed for the ones that come up early. Now that's what the boys tell me.
But it looks like you believe it.
I believe it, you know. Well, that's just common sense, you know. So they're very strict on this seed corn when they plant it, that they have it retested so they know what the actual germ is. And I've been told by an old seed corn man, well, somebody said, well, what do you do with this seed? We send it to Wisconsin to the dairyman because he don't care as long as he gets silage. He's so busy milking cows, he don't. But that was his answer.
Probably plant later in the warmer soil.
So I don't know if there's any seed corn salesman out here, but sorry about making that strangle.
None of them raising their hand if they are.
Well, I'm part of it.
You all become non-viewers, isn't it?
So, yeah, I would say hybrid seed corns would, you know, look what it does today.
Okay. What about you, Mark? What would be, what do you think is being?
Well, corn went from 40 down to 20s and 10s now, you know, 30s. That made a hell of a lot of difference in row
What?
spacing.
Oh, row spacing, yeah, technology.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
and then precision planting. The rows are straight, you can drive down the road and I can tell who knows what they're doing and who don't. You just walk, drive down the road, you can tell.
And GPS, that's a
Right.
GPS function.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all technology, the new technology.
Yeah.
All right.
We talk about technology, with
Okay.
precision planting. Of course, now the monitors will tell you everything what your corn planter is doing.
Mhm.
You put this little chip in the machine. All right, now you're planting corn. Most corn planters in the past maybe drove from one end of the planter, you know, your seed wheels down here. So now, when you went around the contour like we do in our country, this corn plant up here was getting too far apart, these spacing, and these down here were getting too close. And that all shows up on the corn planting card. They put it in the computer and put it on the screen, and there'll be a red streak down here that they're getting overplanted, and there'll be a white streak up here, or maybe a green streak that is not getting enough plants per acre. So now, technology's coming along, so now we got electric drives for our seed planter. So now, no matter how far you're going around the contour, every kernel on every row will be 7 inches apart. That's what you're planting.
Amazing.
Automatic cutoff, too.
Got an automatic shut-off on point rows. Pay for itself in 1 year in this country. On seed corn that are saved. Because you don't overplant your end rows, so you get too many plants there, then that's the way you do it. Plus you're saving seed, and seed's too expensive.
Right. So all that technology.
Something about that.
respecter of all life on the planet, I still gotta say that the usage of chemicals has allowed us to do all we're doing, to have huge farm operations and stuff, and to be, I'm gonna say chemicals have either been a curse or a blessing, I'm not sure, because surely most of these folks out here couldn't farm nearly as much as they do if they had to sit on a cultivator like we all did when we were kids. And chop one row of corn at a time and
One with horses, you know.
yeah. So without a doubt, chemicals have taken us where we're at today.
Yeah, but it didn't take off till after the war. In 49, after the war, and that's when it started. You know. That's when the fertilizer plants came to town and stuff, you know.
Sounds a good thing.
Everything started to, you know, more stuff available. They used to have everything rationed during the war, you know. I can remember it. Fire, gas,
Everything.
flour.
Flowers, cake, depression cake. That's what we had. So now as we look forward, so now we're gonna go future. We're looking into the future here. What do you think is gonna be the next big change in agriculture as we look forward in the future?
Well, maybe we ought to ask her, maybe we ought to ask the younger generation.
Okay.
60-row planter crop.
Huh?
60-row planter crop.
Well, you know, he's talking about bigger and better. And I guess I'll take that a little bit and ask you a question.
Okay.
How much bigger and better, heavier, whatever, will our soils take? Yeah.
Okay.
What, is that the limiting factor? Or one of the limiting?
You take like Gramps, you out there and all the hog shit they haul out there, you know, and that's gotta be there, you know, all the hog hours they got.
Hog manure is a good thing.
With the weight of the machinery, that's my question. Yeah.
Well, let me ask, okay, we were out, but okay, the Deerings use manure spreaders. They're still, and on a lot of land, and a lot of acres. And we were out there, and your soil was 16 earthworms in a spadeful.
16 plus.
Yeah, okay, 16 plus.
You got it, it ain't right.
But that's like our manure spreaders, you know, they got tires on them this wide.
Yeah, 38.
You know, they hold a lot of stuff, but you're spreading that. In fact, they traded a couple of years ago because they only had the fat front tires, you know, like big trucks use. They're only this wide. And you could see that street across the cornfield. But now they went to the big wide tires. You don't see that.
25, yeah.
What do you think about controlled traffic?
Yeah, it's fine.
But hard with that.
Yeah, Warren's doing some of that.
That works.
You know, you're bringing the company from, don't be running across the field.
He's the only one that gets to.
You're not supposed to do that.
Well, I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience because you've got some history here in your area, in your region. And I know some of you are from farther away. But has anybody got a question for our panel here? Yeah.
So you all talk about your sons that are involved in your operations, but what would your advice be to a beginning farmer that wants to get started and doesn't have a family involved in a
Give them $1 million. Hopefully they'll make it.
And where should they find that? They call you?
They got beginning farmer programs, but it really is not enough. You know, the only thing you can, and there's not many of them out there. There's still some farmers around that doesn't have any heirs that want to farm. You know, if you're lucky enough. But most of it has to come from dad handing it down. Otherwise, it's hard to start.
Yeah, totally. Maybe look for a mentor. What's wrong proving yourself. There are ways of doing it, yes, our government programs maybe, a small help, but, yeah, tough, it's not easy, but it,
So
kind of.
why is it harder today then for people? When you guys were started, you
Well-
talked about, buying a farm.
Well, think about the bus route when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Probably the 1970s when I graduated from high school, probably about the top of the baby boom. Gosh, Little Wayne School District there, we had 4 bus routes. The bus stopped almost every farm. Well, as those farmers got older, and let's face it, not many people wanted to farm milk cows with a bucket, to haul manure by hand, whatever. There was better things down the road. So, well, what was the old boy that was ready to retire gonna do? So in my case, I was lucky I had a neighbor with that scenario, nobody to take over for him, and he asked my dad, would Robert like to farm this? And I'm still renting it 43 years later. I haven't had a chance to buy it. And since we've bought other farms and of our own, but I was given that opportunity because no one else was there.
so today, if there's less farmers, you're saying, essentially, why is it harder? What inhibits young people from getting into farming today?
Dollars.
But what, okay, so then why is that? Why is the dollars inhibiting it?
Corn
Price of land.
prices tell you that.
You're aware of that?
Look at corn prices now, ain't worth a shit, it's well like when we moved down here. In '68, we bought the farm, we didn't have enough. All we had was our labor and enough for doing our